Chapter 1. Why is this immortal so happy? You are listening at FameTV.info. Chapter 1. Why is this immortal so happy? Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. A wind of commotion blew around Lin, encircling him as he stood atop a high-rise building that he looked behind him, where a group of fiendish men was slowly cornering him. Hee, shitty brat, let's see how you escape this time. If you have the guts, why don't you just fly away? The burly man in charge brandished the iron club in his hands, and a cruel look emerged on his face. Lin knew that he had no chance of escape anymore. However, once he started to think about the consequences of being caught, his body started to tremble uncontrollably. That kind of life was simply too inhumane. What should I do? What should I do? It would be really great if I could fly. Just as Lin was thinking this, a gust of wind appeared and swept his body up off of the ground. Hey. Lin was terrified. He was swept away by the wind. He really was flying. Holy F***ck. He really can fly. Seeing him being picked up off the ground, the burly man in charge became as dumbstruck as Lin. Right in front of everyone, a gust of wind had brought Lin off the top of the building, and then, the wind disappeared, and he started to free fall. Oh! Save me! The wind howled past, and the weightlessness caused by the rapid descent made Lin shriek in fear that I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Lin kept screaming this to himself in his mind. The fear of imminent death enveloped him, and it caused every part of his body to tremble uncontrollably. Atop the building, the brawny man in charge was dumbfounded as he looked at Lin free falling. Soon after, he turned around to everybody and slowly opened his mouth. That kid was not forced to jump off the building by me. The assailant was the wind. You guys have got to testify for me, please. I'm innocent. The people behind him were also standing there dazed. The wind appeared far too abnormally. How could anyone believe them, when they couldn't even believe it after witnessing it themselves? Seeing the ground rushing towards him, Lin shut his eyes in despair. He didn't expect his life to actually end in such a hopelessly stupid manner. Right at that moment, a mysterious ball of white light suddenly appeared and enveloped his entire body. The formidable force caused by the instantaneous deceleration also arrived at that moment. Lin felt like he was riding a roller coaster and had charged to the bottom, made a turn, then started to shoot towards the sky. Lin started to shriek again. After flying towards the sky, his body landed back on top of the building once again. The extreme severity of weightlessness and G.force, as well as the feeling of wavering between life and death, caused Lin to feel a bout of dizziness. He then started to vomit meekly and uncontrollably. Hey, young lad, are you feeling better? At this moment, a barely discernible voice traveled into Lin's ears. He raised his head and found that an elderly man was looking down at him with a kindly expression. Behind the elder, all the fiendish men who had come to capture him were already lying on the floor, unconscious. The elder's hair and beard were all white and he had the demeanor of a transcendent being. His entire body was shrouded in a magical, golden aura, making him appear holy and flawless. Seeing this, Lin was startled, and numerous scenes rushed into his mind. Novels, anime, movies, all kinds of scenes started to appear in his mind, one after another. Wasn't this scene in front of his eyes the beginning of all dreams? Lin kowtowed heavily, his eyes brimming with tears. Immortal One, thank you for saving me. The elder who Lin had addressed as an immortal lightly stroked his white beard and smiled slightly. I just made some blunders when casting my spell a moment ago and scared my little friend. Anyhow, why were these people chasing you? Lin was dumbfounded upon hearing this. He made a blunder while spell casting. So, me being swept away by the wind just now was a misfortune caused by the immortal. In any case, it was the immortal who had saved him. Upon hearing the immortal's question, countless grievances welled up in his heart. It's like this. After my mother passed away, my father became addicted to gambling. He gambled away the house and amassed millions in debt that he was unable to repay. Afterwards, he ran off on his own. He took a break, then continued, after I finally managed to get into Huaqing University, the creditor found me. He said he wanted me to pay off my father's debt. It was a few million. What would I possibly use to pay him back? My girlfriend learnt that I had incurred a massive debt and left me without a second thought. I was taken away by the creditor to become a laborer. He said that as long as my dad paid off the debt, I would be able to leave. Yet, that kind of drudgery was simply inhumane. I really couldn't endure it, so I decided to make an attempt to escape. The creditor sent those people to capture me, which then leads up to our current situation. With tears streaming down his face as he confided his troubles, Lin felt that his future was bleak. What difference was there between living like a bludger and an entire life paying off debt? After hearing of Lin's sufferings, the immortal had a look of sympathy in his eyes. Young lad, your life has been so harsh, how about this? For you and me to meet is fate, and I see that you have exceptional aptitude. This immortal will gift you a system and allow you to turn your life around. How does that sound? Lin shuddered upon hearing this. He initially thought that being able to form ties with an immortal was already incredibly lucky and did not expect for the immortal to be so generous and gift him a system in their first encounter. Immortal Grandpa, you are so kind to me. I really have no idea how to repay you. Lin was extremely moved, and tears brimmed in his eyes as he looked warmly at the elder. The immortal smiled kindly and turned his palm towards the sky. Immediately, an extremely pure ball white of light appeared in his palm. Young lad, come over here and hold this ball of light in the palm of your hand, the immortal said to Lin. Hearing this, Lin impatiently grabbed the ball of light. The ball of light in his hands radiated hints of warmth, and the light emitted by the ball was extremely soft. Begin system transfer, the immortal uttered slowly. Just as the words left the immortal's mouth, the light shining from the ball of white light became extremely radiant. At this moment, the immortal said to Lin, young lad, make haste and swear that you accept this God of War system and will never abandon it in your entire life. God of War system, what an intimidating name, but why does the vow look like a marriage? VOW.AN Lin had no time to think and hurriedly said, I swear that I accept the God of War system and will not abandon it in my entire life. Right after Lin completed his vow, the ball whizzed directly into his body and fused together with him. Immediately afterwards, a voice sounded in his mind, detected that the host has Tianming physique, the qualifications are fulfilled. System is beginning fusion. Lin was very moved, so moved that he wanted to cry. He had initially thought that his future would be bleak and did not expect such a turn of events. To think that at this moment he would begin a new life accompanied by a cheating system. The immortal was also very moved, in fact, so moved that he had already started to cry. He tearfully looked up at the sky and fell to his knees, descending unexpectedly into tears and laughter. Bahaha! You finally Get off, I've finally received a new lease on life. Immortal Grandpa, what's wrong? Are you alright? Seeing the elderly man behave strangely, Lin questioned him in a concerned manner. Realizing that he had let his emotions get the better of himself, the immortal regained his composure and wiped away his tears. Everything is fine, I just recalled some past events which I cannot bear to look back on. Young lad, after you receive the system, you need to work very hard, the immortal said earnestly. I will. Lin nodded his head honestly. Then do you want to go to a school to learn cultivation? I know a fairly good school you can get into, the immortal continued. Go to a school to cultivate. Only idiots would reject such an offer. I really want to go. Lin barely hesitated before giving his answer. The immortal let out a satisfied smile upon hearing this, and pulled out a golden piece of paper from his sleeve, handing it to Lin. This is my letter of recommendation. With this, you can go to the United University of Cultivation to study and officially set foot on the path to becoming an immortal. Lin was startled. It seemed that the immortal had already helped pave a path for him to become Xuanhuan on this road of cultivation. He respectfully took the letter of recommendation from the immortal and looked at him with gratitude. May I ask what Immortal Grandpa's name is? My name, let's not worry about that. The immortal lightly stroked Lin's head, a look of sympathy barely discernible on his face. I've got to go. See you later, young lad. The immortal waved goodbye to Lin and rode off into the clouds and mist. Take care, immortal. Lin gratefully bowed towards the immortal who was flying towards the sky. The sound of the immortal's laughter traveled down from the heavens and it sounded extremely carefree and wanton. It appeared as if he had got rid of a lifetime of grievances. Why is the immortal so happy? Why does it feel like he's happier than me? There was a look of confusion on Lin's face while he scratched his head. Right at this moment, a female voice sounded in Lin's mind, "Hello." Lin shivered as he heard the voice. The female's voice sounded beautiful and heavenly. This is the system's voice. Lin was surprised and uncertain. At this moment, an interface appeared in his mind. The interface was gray and only a few words were displayed. It read, "The God of War system will activate upon entering the Tai Chu continent." What the hell is the Tai Chu continent? Could it be? Lin recalled the letter of recommendation from the immortal and expectantly spread out the golden sheet of paper in his hands. That he soon realized that there was nothing at all on the golden sheet, apart from a handprint slightly depressed into it. Lin was somewhat uncertain but placed his hand on the piece of paper anyways, matching his hand with the handprint. Suddenly, a magnificent golden light radiated from the paper and Lin only had time to exclaim in surprise before his body was swallowed by the golden light. Ah! Lin felt a rush of dizziness as light once again entered his vision. He then realized that his body had once again appeared high up in the sky and was starting to free fall. Lin once again experienced the feeling of jumping off a building. Regardless of how many times he experienced that so-called refreshing feeling, he wanted to shed tears every time. Boom! He slammed heavily into the ground and was fortunate to have survived solely because of the golden light enveloping him and cushioning his fall. What kind of teleportation technique is this? It's way too violent. Lin grumbled as he lay on the ground sorely. With much difficulty, he raised his head and tried to gather his bearings. Then, he witnessed something that he would never be able to forget. Two white pillars decorated with dragon patterns rose hundreds of meters into the sky, with mysterious characters he could not understand engraved onto a plaque. Behind the gate, there were tens of thousands of palaces, with no end in sight. Iridescent clouds drifted around the palaces and all kinds of spirit beasts soared between heaven and earth. The divine atmosphere was grand and magnificent. Lin stood dumbstruck, his face full of astonishment. So, this world really does have an immortal realm. Could I have come to the immortal realm? Lin tried to control his emotions and calm himself down. After a moment, he saw a girl in Taoist robes walking towards him. He hurriedly rushed over to greet her in order to make sense of his situation. "Hello, immortal sister." Lin waved at the girl. Upon seeing Lin wave at her, the beautiful girl walked over to him. Seeing this, Lin excitedly asked, "Beautiful celestial maiden, may I please ask where this is? I've just arrived here and am not very familiar with the place." Hearing Lin's words, the girl's expression became odd. "Ji Li Gu Lu. Ha! What did you say?" Lin was a bit confused. Like Lin, the girl also wore an expression of confusion. "Ji Li Gu Lu Wa Lai Ji Li." Lin was bewildered. What on earth was she saying? A frightening speculation slowly crept into his mind. "Fairy sister, do you know how to speak Mandarin?" Lin's eyes were a bit teary. Gu Lu Wa Ji Ji Ji." The beautiful girl placed her hands on her hips and appeared a little angry. "It's over, we have a language barrier. What on earth is she saying? I can't understand it at all." At this time, Lin was utterly stupefied, and he stood there with a glazed look in his eyes. He only had one thought in his mind: Nanny. This is completely different from the novels. Isn't the entire world supposed to speak Mandarin? Finally, Lin started to cry. "I can't even understand the language. How will I learn cultivation and become an immortal? Other people begin their journey as weaklings, but I'm beginning mine as a retard." Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.